The lobster sat untouched on my plate. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above a table draped in ivory linen. 62 members of the Henderson family had gathered for our annual Christmas gala, held as always at my older sister Miranda's $5 million estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. I should have felt warm, surrounded by family, by tradition, by the scent of roasted chestnuts and expensive perfume. Instead, I felt the cold metal of the butter knife pressed against my palm as I waited for the moment I knew was coming. Every year, it was the same. The same jokes, the same pointed glances, the same ritual humiliation dressed up as sibling teasing. But this year was different. Because this year, I had stopped hoping. My name is Claire. I'm 32 years old. And for the last 4 years, my family has believed I am the biggest failure to ever carry the Henderson name. I live in a basement apartment. I drive a 10-year-old Honda with a dent in the passenger door. I work at a small used bookstore on the edge of town, where I spend my days repairing damaged spines and re-gluing pages that have come loose from their bin dings. To them, I am nothing. To them, I am the cautionary tale they tell their children at dinner parties. Study hard, or you'll end up like your Aunt Claire. To them, I am invisible except when they need someone to laugh at. But here is the secret they never bothered to learn. Here is the truth that would have shattered every single crystal glass in that chandelier-lit room if they had known it. I am not broke. I am not a failure. And that little bookstore where I work? I own the building. I own the land. And I own a private equity firm worth over $400 million. The joke was never on me. It was always on them. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not to the night of the gala, but to the night everything changed. The night my grandmother, Eleanor Henderson, pulled me aside at her 80th birthday party. I was 28 years old, fresh out of graduate school with a degree in rare book conservation. Broke. Yes, but hopeful. I had just been offered an internship at the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Paper Conservation Lab. It didn't pay much, but it was my dream. That night, as the rest of the family danced and drank, Grandma Eleanor took my hand and led me to her study. She was frail by then, her hands trembled. Her voice was a whisper, but her eyes were sharp as broken glass. Claire, she said, you're the only one who never asked me for money. I didn't know what to say. It was true. Miranda had asked for a down payment on her first house. Derek had asked for a small loan to start his hedge fund. My cousins had asked for cars, for tuition, for vacations. I had asked for nothing except her time. I've been watching you, she continued. You're quiet. You're patient. You don't need the spotlight. That's why I'm giving you everything. I thought she meant her antique furniture, her collection of first edition novels, maybe a few $1,000s to help with my student loans. She handed me a thick manila envelope. Inside were legal documents, a trust, a portfolio of assets, and control of a private equity firm she had founded in 1985. Back when women weren't supposed to run anything. This firm is worth over $200 million today, she said. If you're careful, if you're smart, you could double it in 10 years. I remember my hands shaking as I held the papers. Why me? Why not Miranda? She's the business person. Grandma Eleanor laughed, a dry, tired sound. Miranda is a shark. Sharks are good at eating, but they're terrible at building. You, Claire? You're a gardener. You plant things. You nurture them. You wait for them to grow. She squeezed my hand. Don't tell anyone. Not until you're ready. Let them underestimate you. It's the greatest advantage you'll ever have. 8 months later, she was gone. The family gathered for the reading of the will, expecting fireworks. Instead, they heard that Grandma had left most of her visible assets to charity and a few sentimental items to each grandchild. Miranda got a pearl necklace. I got a worn leather journal. Oh, how fitting, Miranda had said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The failure gets a diary, probably the only book she'll ever own. The room laughed. I smiled politely and tucked the journal into my bag. Inside that journal was a handwritten note from my grandmother. The real inheritance is already yours. Make me proud. Over the next 4 years, I did exactly that. I worked my internship during the day. I studied finance at night. I met with my grandmother's old partners in secret. I learned to read balance sheets the way I read rare manuscripts carefully, patiently, searching for hidden meanings. By the time I turned 30, I had doubled the firm's value. By 31, I had tripled it. $400 million, all hidden behind shell companies and anonymous trusts. But I didn't want to just be rich. I wanted to know something. I wanted to know if my family would love me without the money. So I hid everything. I quit my internship and took a minimum wage job at a friend's used bookstore. I rented a basement apartment with exposed pipes and a landlord who never fixed the heat. I sold my car and bought the dented Honda. I stopped dyeing my hair. I stopped wearing makeup. I became the version of myself that Miranda had always accused me of being. And I watched Miranda buy a second vacation home using money she thought came from her own success, money that actually flowed from an anonymous trust I controlled. I watched Derek brag about his hedge funds returns that were only possible because my capital was propping up his bad bets. I watched my cousin Jake open a third restaurant location funded by a silent partner he never met. That silent partner was me. Every single person in that family who looked down on me was breathing air I paid for. Every lavish dinner, every designer handbag, every private school tuition, all of it touched by my invisible hand. And still, they mocked me. At Thanksgiving, Miranda announced to the entire table that I was the family's cautionary tale. Derek joked that I should work the coat check at his holiday party. My Aunt Patricia suggested I might be happier if I accepted my limitations. I smiled. I nodded. I passed the cranberry sauce, but inside, something was hardening. I kept hoping anyone would defend me. My father, who sat in silence. My mother, who stared at her plate. My cousins, who laughed along. And no one ever did. And so I made a decision. I would give them one last chance. The Christmas gala. If anyone showed me kindness that night, if anyone spoke a single word in my defense, I would continue to support them in secret. I would keep being their invisible safety net. If not, the envelope was already prepared. The lawyers were on standby. All I needed was the final confirmation that my family saw me as nothing more than a punchline. The lobster sat untouched on my plate. Miranda tapped her champagne glass with a butter knife. Before dessert, she announced, "I want to give a toast to my baby sister. The one who proves you don't need ambition to win at life." Laughter rippled. I felt my heart settle into a slow, steady rhythm. 32 years old, Miranda continued, still renting a basement apartment, still working at that little bookstore, still single, still broke, still content. She curled her lip around the word like it tasted bad. Isn't that sweet, everyone? Our little failure reminds us that not everyone can win. Derek raised his glass to Claire, living proof that the family tree has a few rotten branches. The laughter grew louder. My mother looked away. My father studied his shoes. My cousin Jake shouted, "Maybe she can read us a bedtime story later." 62 faces, 62 smiles. Not one voice raised in my defense. I set down my fork. "Actually," I said. My voice was quiet, but the room had gone suddenly still. "I have an announcement." "Oh, here it comes," Derek muttered, leaning back in his chair. "She's writing a memoir. My life as a cautionary tale." More laughter. I let it wash over me. I had spent 4 years absorbing these moments. 4 years of swallowing my pride. 4 years of hoping. And no more. "I'm not writing a memoir," I said. "I'm terminating a series of agreements." The word agreements landed like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples of confusion spread across the table. "What are you talking about?" Miranda asked. Her smile had frozen, but her eyes were already calculating. I reached into my purse and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a list. Names, dates, dollar amounts. 4 years ago, I said, standing up slowly. I made a decision. I wanted to know if my family would love me for who I was, not for what I could provide. So I hid my wealth. I hid my success. And I watched. "Your wealth?" Jake snorted. "Claire, you live in a basement. I own the building," I said. "I own the entire block." The table went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of digestion and small talk. The quiet of prey sensing a predator. "Jake," I continued, turning to my cousin. Your restaurant chain. You thought the silent partner was a venture capital firm from Boston. It wasn't. It was me. Redwood Holdings, that's my company. I own 60% of your business. And as of this morning, I've instructed my lawyers to withdraw all funding. You have 90 days to buy me out or file for bankruptcy. The color drained from his face. His wife grabbed his arm. That's impossible, he whispered. You're a book restorer. I'm a book restorer who inherited $200 million from Grandma Eleanor and turned it into $400 million, I said. You just never asked. I turned to Miranda, my sister, my tormentor, the woman who had spent 32 years making sure I knew my place. Miranda, I said, and her name tasted like ash in my mouth. That mystery investor who saved your real estate firm from foreclosure in 2021. The one who gave you the capital to buy that second home in Aspen. The one who covered your payroll when 3 of your properties went vacant. Her face was gray now. No, yes, that was me. The loan comes due in 30 days. Full repayment. With interest. I'm not renewing. You can't do that, she said, but her voice had lost its arrogance. We're sisters. We're strangers who share DNA, I said. That's not the same thing. Derek stood up. His chair scraped against the marble floor. This is insane. You're insane. There's no way a bookworm like you, Derek. I cut him off. Your hedge fund's largest limited partner is a shell company called Silver Creek Advisors. I own Silver Creek. I've been covering your losses for 3 years. Every time you made a bad bet, I quietly filled the gap. You thought you were a genius. You were just lucky enough to have a sister you mocked funding your failure. He sat back down, hard, and Patricia, I continued, scanning the table. That scholarship your son received to pay for medical school? Funded by a trust I control. I've redirected it to a more deserving student starting next semester. Her fork clattered against her plate. Uncle Robert. That inheritance you thought came from Grandma's cousin? It came from me. I stopped the payments last week. You'll notice the difference soon. One by one, I named them. One by one, I watched their carefully constructed lives crumble in real time. The second homes, the private schools, the luxury cars, all of it built on money I had given them while they laughed at me for being poor. The room had gone completely silent. 62 faces stared at me, some pale, some red, all terrified. I wasn't enjoying this. I want to be clear about that. There was no satisfaction in watching my mother cry. No joy in seeing my father's hands shake. The revenge fantasy you imagine in your darkest moments, the one where you finally get to say everything you've held inside, it doesn't feel the way you think it will. It feels hollow. It feels like the end of something you didn't know you were mourning. But I didn't come here to gloat. I came here to end a lie. I didn't do this to hurt you, I said, and my voice cracked for the first time. I did this because I needed you to see me. Really see me. And you never did. Miranda stood up. Her champagne glass was empty, but her hands were shaking. You could have told us. You could have just told us. Would you have believed me? I asked. Or would you have found a way to twist it into another joke? She didn't answer. At Thanksgiving, when you called me the family embarrassment, I waited for someone to say something. I continued. No one did. At last year's gala, when Derek joked that I should work the coat check, I looked around this table for a single voice. Silence. When Jake posted that meme on Instagram, the one comparing me to a sad houseplant, 30 of you liked it. 30. My mother was crying now. My father still wouldn't look at me. I don't need your love anymore, I said. I don't need your approval. I have something better. I have the quiet satisfaction of knowing that every cruel word you ever spoke was spoken to the very person funding your existence. I picked up the list and folded it carefully, the way I fold a damaged page before repairing it. You wanted a failure in the family, I said, looking at Miranda. Congratulations. Starting tomorrow, you'll have several. I walked toward the exit. The snow had started falling outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. My dented Honda was parked next to Miranda's Mercedes. Claire, please, Miranda called out. Her voice was small now. Small and broken. We can fix this. We can be better. I stopped at the doorway, turned back one last time. Do you know what my favorite book is? I asked. She stared at me blankly. Do you know what I do on weekends? What makes me happy? What I'm afraid of? Silence. That's what I thought, I said. You don't know me. You never wanted to. You just wanted someone to look down on. I walked out into the snow, got into my 10-year-old Honda, and drove straight to the private hangar where my jet was waiting, behind me. The Henderson family Christmas gala became a funeral for something that had never really lived. The days that followed were chaos. My phone didn't stop ringing for a week. Miranda called 47 times. Derek left 19 voicemails, alternating between rage and begging. My mother showed up at my basement apartment, the one I had already vacated, because I'd moved back into the penthouse I'd been hiding for years. The lawyers handled most of it. I had prepared for this. Every document was signed. Every trust was dissolved. Every anonymous gift was traced back to its source. Within 30 days, Miranda's real estate empire had crumbled. She lost the Aspen house first, then the Greenwich estate. She moved into a rental, a modest two-bedroom that she would have sneered at 6 months earlier. Derek's hedge fund dissolved when his investors realized his genius returns had been propped up by my capital. He filed for personal bankruptcy in March. Jake lost 2 of his 3 restaurants. The third only survived because he finally started managing it himself, showing up at 5 in the morning to check deliveries and scrub grout, and Patricia's son had to take out student loans like everyone else. He called me once not to yell, but to thank me. I didn't know, he said. I didn't know she was spending your money on me while making fun of you. I told him it wasn't his fault. I meant it. But here is the part I didn't expect. The part no revenge story ever prepares you for. Losing everything made some of them better. My father called me for the first time in years, not to ask for money but to apologize. He told me he had always been afraid of Miranda, afraid of her anger, afraid of being her target instead of me. I should have defended you, he said. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't forgive him, not then. But I listened. My mother started therapy. She sent me a long email, the first real communication we'd had in a decade, describing how she had confused keeping the peace with love. How she had watched Miranda torment me and said nothing because she didn't want to be next. I failed you, she wrote. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I see you now. I see everything. Even Jake, my arrogant, Instagram-obsessed cousin, hit rock bottom and then started climbing. He sold his remaining restaurant, opened a small diner with his own 2 hands, and sent me a photo of the grand opening. The sign above the door said Claire's. I named it after the only person in the family who ever actually helped me, he wrote in the card. I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know I remember. That card made me cry harder than anything else. And Miranda never spoke to me again. She couldn't. I think the shame was too heavy. I think she had built her entire identity on being the successful one, and I had revealed that identity to be a house of cards. Every achievement she had bragged about, every victory toast she had made at my expense was built on my silence. She moved to Florida, changed her name. I heard through mutual friends that she works as a real estate agent now, a real one, without invisible investors. She's not rich, she's not famous, but she's surviving. I don't know if that's a happy ending. I don't know if she's learned anything. I do know that I've made peace with not knowing. As for me, I still live in the penthouse. I still drive the dented Honda I've grown attached to it. I still work at the bookstore, though now I own 3 more locations. I spend my days restoring damaged books and my evenings reading by the fire. The only difference is that now, when someone asks why I live so simply, I smile and say, because I already own everything I need. And that's the truth. Money was never the point. The revenge was never the point. The point was being seen. The point was knowing that I mattered, not because of my bank account, but because of who I was. For 4 years, I gave my family the chance to love me for me. They failed that test. But in failing, they taught me something invaluable. They taught me that I don't need their love to be whole. I am whole on my own. I am enough on my own. And the greatest revenge, the quietest, most powerful revenge of all, is simply walking away from people who cannot see your worth and never looking back. Some of my family members are rebuilding their lives. Some are rebuilding their relationship with me slowly, carefully. one genuine conversation at a time. We'll never be the family I dreamed of as a child. Too much damage has been done for that, but we're becoming something else. Something real. Something built not on obligation or inheritance, but on choice. My father calls every Sunday. My mother sends letters, real letters, handwritten, the kind I taught her to preserve. My cousin Jake sends me photos of his diner and asks for advice about which books to put on his community shelf. And me? I'm writing a book about grandmothers who see what others don't, about the quiet power of being underestimated, about the moment you realize that the family you were born into doesn't have to be the family you keep. The working title is The Failure, because that's what they called me. And look at me now. The lobster sat untouched on my plate. The champagne glasses shattered on the floor. The family that laughed at me for being pathetic learned a lesson I had known for 32 years. Worth isn't measured in dollars. Success isn't about what you have, but who you are. And sometimes, the person you thought was the family failure is actually the only one holding everything together. I'm Claire. I'm 32 years old. I'm a book restorer, a business owner, and a woman who finally learned to stop hoping for love from people who only knew how to take. This is my story, and I'm finally ready to tell it. Soft piano music fades in as the screen slowly darkens. Narrator's final voiceover. If you took something from this story, if you've ever felt invisible, underestimated, or mocked by the people who should have loved you, remember this. Your silence is not weakness. Your patience is not passivity. And one day, when you're ready, you'll show them exactly who you've been all along, not for revenge, for truth. Thank you for listening. End screen with subscribe for more revenge stories and a subtle, audible promotion overlay as described in the original brief.